Welcome to another episode of DD on the Spot. As always, I'm your host, Ryan Johnson. Before we get into it with our guest today, well, first of all, people should recognize our guest. If you've been following the fitness industry for a while, she's one of the more well-known names that we've probably ever had on the show. We have Macy on the podcast. She's an IFBB pro women's physique, and she was Miss USA women's physique in 2019. So she has a lot of stuff under her belt, and she's on here to share her journey. And then we have a few topics that we want to, talk about. But Macy, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you. Honestly, I'm really excited to be on here. It's been a little while. I know you asked me, and life just gets in the way, so I'm excited to be here.
Oh my God, I totally understand. Yeah, there've been some people from like day one that I asked, and they're still finding And again, I know how busy people can be. Trust me, with my schedule that I have, that's totally understandable. But before we get into what we were going to talk about, why don't you just first off give us your backstory on what inspired and motivated you to get in shape and how that led to where you're currently at right now?
Yeah, sure. So let's see. I started gymnastics at the age of 3. So I grew up basically very dedicated and driven. I started gymnastics. I went into competitive cheerleading. High school, I went into high school cheerleading and also ran track, which, believe it or not, I ran the 100-meter hurdles and the 300-meter hurdles. A lot of people ask how in the hell I was able to do the hurdles being 5 foot tall. And what they don't understand is that the lower you are to the hurdle, the quicker your time's going to be. So with being in cheerleading and being flexible, it was just a win for me.
My guess would have been you just would have ran underneath the hurdles, and then no one would have noticed.
There was one track meet where I did skip a hurdle because I was on the inside lane. I've done that. I was just over it. It was my senior year, and I was just ready to be done. But after high school, I went into college and cheered in college at Sam Houston State, and also my junior college, Kilgore College, as well. So after I got out of college, I didn't really know where I wanted to go with life. And I know I wanted to still be some sort of physically fit and active. So I saw a couple people that I knew from cheerleading starting to do bodybuilding competitions. So I immediately started just hitting the gym. And then in 2014, I did 1 full year of off season and bodybuilding training. 2015 was my first year in my first competition.
And just being that you've been in this sport for almost a decade now, what has it been like just seeing the sport change and evolve? Because I know we're going to get into just how the sport is right now, but like just being in that 2015 era, because that was when I was probably in my peak interest in bodybuilding myself, when I was like really hitting the gym hard. But what's that been like just to see this sport change and evolve since then?
Honestly, I get chills because I still feel as like like I'm 24, 25 years old, like body wise, but my mentality is definitely, older 30s, just because I have been able to shift my mind into a little bit more calm space. I'm not, chugging a bunch of pre-workout and like training for 3 hours, 4 hours at the gym every single day there. But I love the gym and I always will. But over the past 10 years, I'd say knowledge has changed for sure. Social media has heavily impacted the industry, which I wish I could have done more. I respect the fact that I've done so much now, but I still wish I could do more with it. But I also see a lot of positives and I can see some negatives. So it's kind of a mixture of like a lot of emotions, I guess I'd say.
Well, you were the Miss USA in 2019. What was that experience like?
That's, again, I'm getting chills. So I want to say that was probably one of the highlights of my bodybuilding career, probably the biggest highlight of my career because everyone wants to turn pro. But to win the overall at a national show is even better. And it just kind of really sinks in that you did deserve that pro card. You did earn it and you fought for it no matter what. And the best part is like my husband at that time was my boyfriend. We had been dating for probably six months. I moved from the Woodlands to Southern California, Los Angeles. We started a life together. We both competed together. I mean, we've known each other since college, but to compete with someone and move in together, I was like, I don't know how this is going to work. It's either going to be really bad or really, really great. And it was great. I absolutely loved it. And he helped me every bit of the way. There was one point where I just sat down on the bed and cried. And I was like, I was pissed off because the gym was packed. I couldn't get my training done. I left, went to another gym, and they were literally closing, and I couldn't finish my train or I couldn't finish my cardio. And I cried and I was like, I just want to give up. And he looked at me and he said, "You're a daddy's girl. I know that you love your father, and your father would be upset that you're wanting to give up right now. Go downstairs, get your cardio done. I'll meet you in the kitchen." And I did it. So, I mean, he pushed me, and I'm always saying that if you don't have a supportive significant other, that's okay. Look for other friends or your coach because you need that support system. So making it to the stage, turning pro, that whole weekend was beautiful. He just made it extremely just stress free, and it was amazing.
If you could go back and talk to the 2015 version of yourself before you started competing, what would be the best piece of advice you would give her?
I would tell her to slow down, get your finances in order,
Yes.
and the stage will always be there. I had some hiccups along the way, but all it did was just it made me grow as a person. And I knew if I could just qualify, like hit the top 5 at a nationals, I didn't have to requalify again. Just stop, don't compete anymore. Just do nationals again the next year. You don't have to keep competing. You're like back to back to back to back, especially within the division of women's physique, women's bodybuilding. Like you have to give yourself some time to grow, and you have to give yourself some time to earn up that money to save, to travel, to go to those shows because they're not local. Well, they weren't at the time. And now we have nationals in Dallas. So that's awesome for people.
At what point were you starting to see yourself like, hey, things are getting a little, weird here in bodybuilding? And at what point were you kind of like, hey, this is, some things are starting to happen?
Um, I want to say it was right around when I turned pro, 2019 to 2020. That was kind of the shift where I started to see way more conditioning in divisions that shouldn't have as much conditioning. I'm an advocate for conditioning, but having the size to match it is another thing. So, I mean, and also people can look different in pictures versus in person. So, I mean, and then also carving up, pumping up, all of that completely changes. When I turned pro, I was 104 pounds on stage at 5 foot tall. So I try to make sure I get that out there like, hey, I was a little short shit, barely weighed anything. It's just how you present yourself that makes it.
Meanwhile, I'm 6'3", 210 pounds. So if we took a photo together, people would be like, what the hell's going on over there? So I found that extremely fascinating too. Yeah, especially with like, you see some of these photographs and you're like, God, this must be so big. And then if I've only been to a handful of bodybuilding shows, but the ones I've been to, when you finally meet them, you're like, oh wow, they're really short. But then you're like,
Yeah,
they're just really muscular and jacked. But then you just walk up to them and you're like, I could bounce you like a basketball if I wanted to, basically. But
right.
I mean, that's just, I mean, this is a whole sport of an illusion too. And it's all about finding best ways to illustrate the illusion, whether it comes to angles and lighting and whatnot. And just, yeah, I think really, especially with the pandemic, it really kind of accelerated some things that were happening in the sport where then
It,
oh, go ahead.
it did. And a lot of it was like, I'm not knocking anyone for turning pro. You earned it. I applaud you. Absolutely. I will say a lot of people were not able to finish their preps and they had to pull out, or their shows just kept getting shoved back and postponed and postponed. And in my mind, as a health perspective, there's no way I could do a prep like that. I have an end date, and whenever I start taking extra supplements and things, I can't extend that time period because that is my non-negotiable. Um, I don't want all of those risks. So there were a lot of people that were like, whatever it takes. And then barely anybody showed up. And also, the Arnold happened and, there was no spectators. And then they started cutting down divisions. So women's physique started getting less and less shows. So then you get stacked shows on the ones that are local in the United States. And everyone that's on the smaller end, we're nothing. There's no point.
I was gonna say, like, good luck against Sarah, if we're being completely honest, really. If you and that's what happens when you have that many less shows, is that you're gonna get the cream of the crop showing up every single time. Then it's like it becomes almost unfair at that point.
Yeah. So, like, on one side of things, this is the elite of the elite of bodybuilding. And if you want to make it to the Olympia stage and you want to win, there's a lot of things you need to do. And I absolutely say, yeah, that's what it takes. You've got to get there, then that's what you got to do. Now, on the other hand, it's like, well, we don't have as many shows as like bikini competitors do. So I think I looked it up on the IFBB schedule, and I want to say that there was in between 50 to 60 different shows for bikini. And there was about maybe 12 to 15, I think, shows in the United States for women's physique. So that is less chances for us as our division to get to that stage. Also, there's no point system, which means in a health perspective, you have to do one show and nail it, or you extend your prep and do multiple, which is a higher health risk. I don't know if they thought about that, but I get it on all levels. That's just not something I'm willing to do.
When you were getting started in the sport, did you always want to do the physique division, or did you start out somewhere else and then work your way up?
No, so my very first show in 2015 was the Phil Heath Classic in Houston. I did figure and I won the novice, open, and the overall in my very first show. So I started in figure and then I moved up to women's physique a year and a half later. And I had multiple people tell me that I was going to go to women's physique, and I kept telling them, no, I don't want to get that big. So,
Well, isn't it kind of funny now where had you get brought the package from like 2016, 2017 when you were beginning in the physique division and you went back to figure now, you might not even win the figured. You might not even win the figure shows.
yeah, my last show last year, I did the San Antonio Pro, and I'm still not big enough or lean enough for figure pro. So, I mean, that's not saying I couldn't do it. I could, but as I was waiting for finals, standing in line, I had an overwhelming feeling of boredom and not towards figure girls or the division itself. I wanted to go on stage and do women's physique poses because that's where my heart is. So I was kind of bored and it didn't really feel like a show to me. And that's when I knew figure is no longer for me. I have to do women's physique. And if that's something I'm going to pursue, I need to decide when I'm going back and what I'm willing to do.
I've always said that every division, regardless, should be allowed to do the front and back double bi, regardless of anything. You should at least have some variety in the posing too, because yeah, you have like the bland figure poses where, yeah, they're not horrible poses, but it's like they don't have, you can't really express your individuality with that type of posing.
And I've been to several posing seminars, and I've heard actual judges say, figure girls, do your figure poses, don't go up there and try to do flexes. So, in my eyes, I'm like, I'm a pro. I can do whatever the hell I want to do on this stage, and you can knock me or not. But if they don't want you to do it, that's their call. So, at the end of the day, they're the ones telling you if your body is up to par or not.
When it comes to the, extra supplements that you do take before, were you always in the mindset that you had like a set time frame of like this is the exact time period that I'm going to take them, or was it through trial and error that you realized that? Because I appreciate that you came out and said that like you have a set schedule where it's like I'm not going to do anything past this date or before this date, because so many people I think don't feel it like that, and then when stuff does get extended or they might have to run out of a show, then they just prolong stuff, and that's when the really sketchy stuff can really happen to you.
I always try to tell people pick 2 to 3 shows and make sure they're within a time frame of when you can deploy certain things. Now, something may happen and you're not in shape for show A. You have, plan B, it's like show B. So what you do is basically start dieting down, and then that's why your check-ins, your coach and everything, you tell your coach what your non-negotiables are, they go over risks, and they should have a set time frame for you. So I know that certain things shouldn't be deployed until a certain time frame. And I'm not willing to risk going over too excessive amount of time because that puts my life at risk. And then also for having children.
Absolutely. I have talked to people where that has become an issue due to some stuff that they take. And I'm not going to go into specifics, but like, yeah, it's definitely something that you really need to consider if you want to have kids, especially in this sport. But I mean, you are one of the people that has still kept their femininity. You still are extremely feminine, and that's
Thank
something
you.
that is becoming more rare, as I hate to say, in this sport. But
It
what
is.
what advice do you have for people getting started just to be able to help maintain that? Because so many people find that a balancing act, and sometimes people just have that I'm not gonna say stupid belief, because some people just have that belief where you either have to have one or the other, really. But it's like, no, that doesn't have to be the case. You can have both.
Yeah, you really can. Um, there's lots of great examples too that still look absolutely beautiful, sound beautiful, and have a great life. And then there's someone that says, I just want to be Miss Olympia. You have to understand that after you leave bodybuilding, what comes next? And people aren't thinking that way because they think right now. Um, I wasn't the type of person because I had some like financial issues a while back and I couldn't think past next month. That's just how my brain was because I was scared because you live paycheck to paycheck and then bodybuilding's expensive. You try to get sponsorships and they either want you to sell your body online or they start winning shows. But in order to win shows, you need to pay for it. So there's a lot of struggles that people just completely ignore, and that that's you. But in my case, I want to say my best advice is always do your own research. If you ask your coach and they do not know the answer, find someone who knows the answer. Because if they can't explain it, then that might not be a good person for you. Or if they say the keywords, whatever it takes to win, or do you want to win?
Yeah.
I run far away from that person.
Yeah, when we're done recording, I'll name you some names that you probably know. That I mean, well, yeah, you probably know more than me, but like, yeah, I've heard that statement too many times, and then it's like, yeah, just turn and run, regardless of what they say after that. If you hear those coming out of your mouth, so yeah.
Yeah. So previously, I have pushed, I've tested my limits on things. I am here to say I am lucky and I am thankful that I haven't had any issues. There's people who have done less than what I did and had the opposite effect. And unfortunately,
I know some people, it's just even from like a low dose, something like that, of something that's not, you wouldn't think of. And then some people just genetically or through circumstance just get unlucky like that. So yeah, absolutely.
yeah. And then you have big names in the industry that just will not admit what they've done or taken, or try to advise on like going a healthy way to do it. They just completely ignore it and Mike O'Hearn things. So
Daniel and Bailey. Sorry. Sorry, I got
yeah,
my throat.
so my um my thoughts is I was coached by John Jewett, and then I was also coached by Jamie, and they're with J3U Coaching. And they have gone on to try to educate the masses within safer gear protocol, bodybuilding, and longevity. So my entire life, I want to have a family and then also come back to the stage whenever I want and not have any issues on not being able to lose weight again because my thyroid's ruined or having, virilization issues. All of those crazy little issues, I think long term and not just here and now.
Is that hard for you to think long term though? Because I know sometimes I know how competitive bodybuilders can be, and there are sometimes when you're in the gym and let's say you're in one of those days where you're just having a rough day and you're just thinking to yourself like, God, maybe I should just do this just to win because you have that urge to win. Is it hard for you to look into the long term, or is it? I mean, some people just have that blessing where they're able to just like tell themselves like, no, this is for a reason. But for me myself, I would struggle with like just take that easy road, but
Yeah.
you might not know what's going to happen in 5 years, but just take that easy road.
So, I mean, yeah, absolutely. And then especially whenever you're midway through prep, you're reaching the end of it and you're like checking in with your coach and you feel flat, you don't feel lean enough, and you're like, what else can we do? Luckily, I have a coach and people on that world that say we just have to keep going, checking the boxes. And I know that you don't want to do anything for risking things, and we're not going to let you. And I'm like, cool, thank you. Because you get stuck in that visual like tunnel, and you're like, what else can I do just to like really nail it? But you got to get out of that mindset and just keep going, doing every single day, and don't keep trying to add more because that's not always the answer.
How do you deal with it as a competitor when you work your butt off in a prep, you get super dry, you get super lean, you get all the striations, you think that you're ready to go, and then as the years go on, the judges keep telling you, "Oh, we want you even more drier, we want you even more shredded." What is that like for you to just after you put in 110% just to keep telling them, have them tell you like, "We want more and more," and then you're just like, "How am I able to do this?"
So this is going to sound really bad, but I do not get feedback from judges unless I'm like within range of like getting where I need to be. So I didn't get feedback when I won the overall USA's because I didn't really need it. I was like, cool, I need to come in bigger, like a lot bigger, and lean because I'm now a pro. I got my first feedback from my first pro show at the Europa in 2021, and they said to come in tighter. And my next show was a week later at the Texas Pro. That show was stacked. It was the very first one, and I didn't get feedback because I was like, nah, I know what to do. Bigger back, come in leaner. What else are you going to give me? I did figure last year. I didn't even ask for feedback because I was like, I don't care. I'm not doing figure anymore. So, and I'm not going back to the stage until like 2026. So I know what it is. It's bigger back, get leaner. And I accept it and I understand it. I'm not ever going to be the biggest on stage because I'm not the type of person that wants, this is my personal opinion. I don't want massive shoulders. I don't. I like a good, I could add a little bit more for sure, but I don't want to look like a huge linebacker. That's just not me.
There are dozens of women that will be telling me that they hate you now because that's all that some of the guests that I want on. That's all that they want is I just want those cap shoulders and I just want those big shoulders. And then for you to be like, yeah, I don't really care too much. There, that's like for me, calves is the one area that I struggle with. That's like someone saying like I have big calves, but I don't really care about it. It's like just screw you. But no, I agree too. I mean, for some people they don't like that look, and not everyone has to like a certain look, especially when it comes to bodybuilding too. I mean, your bodies come in all different shapes and sizes. Like if I were to compete and you were to stand next to me too, it's different shapes and different sizes, and that's what makes bodybuilding great. If everyone was the same height and the same weight and looked the same, it's like what would be the point of the show then?
Yeah. And that's another thing is like these people need to understand that I'm 5 foot tall. So for me to be that big,
For you to be breaking down doors at 5 feet tall, I want to know what the hell you're taking.
Yes, exactly. Like, yes, I want bigger shoulders. I can handle it, but not massive to the point where like that's what's going to give me more ratios, you know? I can handle a little bit, but I don't want to get that big. That's just my personal opinion. That's not what I think women's physique should be. And at this point, they need to add the division classic women's physique or lightweight women's bodybuilding.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. And when you are training, what's the first body part that really, really takes off that you don't have to work as hard on? And what's the last one that like you just have to drag behind?
Uh, legs always are easiest for me to grow. Um, which is nice, but also not. So my legs are kind of big, but they're not that big. I've got some fat on me. So, of course, my size comes down as I'm dieting to get that lean. Um, my shoulders do look good. My back is always like kind of hard to pull in or actually grow because I'll have a really nice wide V taper during off season, and then as soon as I go to diet, it's like my lats just kind of shrivel and shrink.
That's why I was shocked when you said that you wanted to have your shoulders not be so big. Because like, if I were to judge and say like, what do you think's one area that takes off for her? I'd say, oh yeah, shoulders for sure. But legs, don't even get me started on legs personally. So again, that's why I asked that question because everyone has different body parts. Dear God, I have to look at my legs right now. So thank you for that. Now for reminding me of my of what I lack. No, I'm just kidding. But
Nah.
it's one of those things. I've always made a joke. I could inject pure muscle into my legs and they're not going to gain an ounce. I mean, it's some people just have that thing where it's just they're not going to be blessed for it. But just being into bodybuilding too, I mean, just the mindset that you have to compete is something that is not talked about as much as it should be because everyone will just notice the physical changes and say, "Oh my God, you look amazing," but they won't notice that mental changes happen as well. What has this whole journey been mentally for you?
So what's wild is a lot of people don't understand that there's a difference between competing to be Mr. Olympia or Miss Olympia versus competing because you love it. Um, I pour money into competing because I love the prep, getting tanned,
Wait,
getting.
wait, 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 wait. You love the prep.
I love prep. Yeah,
You're probably the third person that's ever said that. Most people, when I say prep, they shiver, and then I can start to see like them almost start to cry.
no, I absolutely love prep. I love it. It's but that's because I open up myself to it. I came from a very vulnerable, hurt spot from a really bad breakup. And I had a lot of guys treat me like trash the first couple years in bodybuilding. And then I found the love of my life and we got married. And it's something that we hold dear together. We're always going to meal prep. We're always going to go to the gym. We're always going to carry this lifestyle for the rest of our life because it's something we enjoy and we love. Now, bodybuilding, I don't really care about the stage as much. It's the pain and where my mind takes me that I enjoy because I break past so many barriers every single time I prep. So, for instance, last year I dipped to the lowest point in calories. It was like roughly 900 calories a day. Uh, Probably the last 6 or 8 weeks, no cheat meals, just refeed days, as in like higher calorie days of the same foods. And it took me to a really interesting place, not in a bad way. Like, I'm not the type of person that's going to lash out. In fact, the closer I get to the show, the detached I get, and I don't have as many emotions and at one point my husband was like, hey, like, I know this sucks and you're hungry, but I need you to interact with me. And I was like, honestly, I was answering you in my head. I had no idea that my mouth was not moving. And a lot of people will never understand that, and their partners will get upset with them, but he understands. We both get it because he's like a robot in prep too. He will just go 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 and never complain.
If you guys are ever on prep at the same time, do you have to ever like hire a babysitter basically to make sure that you guys don't like burn the house down or anything?
We, for some reason, operate so good because we're in a rhythm where we know we have to cook, we gotta clean, we've got to take care of our house, we gotta work, we gotta do the dishes, we gotta do laundry. Like it's just repetitive. You wake up and do the same damn thing over and over again. Where a lot of people would just like get upset because they don't have date night, they don't have this, they don't have that. We just eat our food and watch TV. We have a hot tub. We go out there and hang out in our hot tub. You know,
How do you deal with the public perception that you get, especially as you were getting ready for a show and they see a 5 foot tall, just really jacked woman walking down the street? It's like, it's not something that you see very often. How do you deal with that? And as you've gotten more and more into the sport, is it easier for you to accept the fact that you're going to get more stares? Or is it still one of those things where you're like, okay, this is still kind of weird?
oh yeah. Well, what's funny is whenever we go to HEB to go pick up our groceries, the first person that gets noticed is always my husband because he's obviously bigger. And they, we had this happen to us at Walmart one time. They said, "Oh man, like how much you bench, bro?" And so he's like, I don't really bench like that anymore." And he's like, "But she's the pro." And then they laugh, and I'm like, "But I fucking am. Like I am a pro." And then they laugh,
You
and
have
I'm
to be
like,
like that little kid. No, guys, I'm serious. I am a pro.
"Yeah, it's like I'm a real boy." Pinocchio.
Yeah.
Like I don't. It makes me laugh because, like, yeah, I am smaller, but like
That's the one time, Macy, we're going to be like, look at my shoulders.
like a square. I
Yeah.
am a bodybuilder.
Yeah.
But I mean, a lot of people at the store, they're like, "Oh my god, you're really inspirational. Both y'all look so great," and it's good. Like I don't pay attention to it too much anymore. I kind of just it's just me and normal now. So
Yeah, yeah. It gets to a point where you recognize it and you're able to just be like, "Hey, this is what's going to happen," you know. And it's like I said, luckily the interactions that I hear of are vastly more positive than the negative, so that really does help things out a lot. But when we were talking about earlier about like just the way that the sport has been going as well, do you have any ideas of what the sport can do to you know turn things around?
I have no idea. One thing that I have noticed is that Tyler has been a little bit more vocal on posing and breakdown of shows in each division. But I did notice that he hasn't broke down the women's physique division from the Olympia. So I thought that was kind of interesting. Like, what if we have a set criteria and in that criteria it says certain things, but when we go to these shows and we see these people winning these shows is the standard and the criteria. But how do you expect some of the rest of us to get to that level and not worry about individuals' health and risks? Because I always tell people this judge panel goes home and lives their life. You're driving the car. And if you drive it straight into a tree, it's your fault. And I'm not trying to be rude. You are getting advice from people, but you can say no and you can stop and you can give yourself non negotiables. So you weigh out the positives. Like, do I want to go to Olympia? Do I need to switch divisions? Um, what can I do to get there? Is that something I'm willing to risk? So the future of it, I have no idea what they're going to do. I really would love to see a lightweight women's bodybuilding and maybe shift some people around to highlight more women's bodybuilding and then try to get women's physique back to a slender look. Because me short, I will pack on some size if I must, but I don't want to look like that. I want the slender look, like figure without heels.
Well, yeah, and plus you're not at your healthiest too, even at those times you step on stage. So it's like the more size you pack on, the more really at risk you are. And I always tell people it's like the judges aren't going to be the ones that are going to have to cry on the treadmill or they're not going to have to go through the preps. So you do what's most important for you, and just remember that those people have nothing to do with the sport other than stepping on that stage and judging you. And obviously, a lot of them are qualified and like there's a reason they're judges. But other than that, it's like they don't have anything to do with your preps. They don't have to, they're not the ones that understand, you know, like what you go through, like your significant others. So you have to prioritize yourself first. And I know bodybuilding can be somewhat considered of a selfish sport, but like, yeah, it has to be in a certain way where you have to really prioritize yourself.
It really is. And I mean, I think everything I've said might be controversial, and a lot of people are like,
It's
"Oh,
not going to be controversial. It's not even as nearly as bad as what I've said. I have gotten nothing but positive feedback except from some of the fans of the sport that thought that I'm ruining it. And I'm just like, okay, screw you guys. But yeah.
how can you ruin it by making it more aggressive and killing more people?"
I was going to say, how can just saying basically having what I said summed up in a sentence that I don't want to see more dead people, how is that somehow something that's ruining the sport?
Yeah, I agree. I mean,
I've made the same argument where it's like, what if like 4 or 5 NFL players just drop dead in the middle of games, like that? What happened 2 years ago, where that guy had that thing where, but luckily he was revived. But like, what if that happened 4 or 5 times during a season? Don't you think people would start to be calling for changes in the sport then?
I want to say 2021 was probably the most aggressive I saw, where a lot of women that just none. And I don't necessarily know if it was from drug use or if it's from, their body just shutting down from lack of nutrients. It could be a multiple amount of
Well, a
things.
lot of it was diuretics too, and that's one thing that wasn't
Yeah,
really talked about as much too. Is like that comes to play more than people realize, because when you get your body to that lean thing, your body sometimes can't protect you as well as it could had you not been on diuretics.
yeah, I agree. I mean, there's a lot of misuse, a lot of misunderstanding, a lot of confusion, and a lot of persuasiveness. And it's really sad and unfortunate. And like I said, this is probably going to sound awful, but if that's what you want to do and you want to go to Olympia, you got to understand that you've got to own up to those risks and own it and just go with it. But if you don't want those risks and you want to take the amount of time, then take the amount of time that it takes to get there. Sarah, she didn't hit the stage until she had been training for years. And I do applaud her for being, vocal about that. And
Oh,
her
again, we're not saying anything bad about any competitors, because they have to put in the work and they train their butt off. They have this insane dedication that I would never have, and they are super just super dedicated. And we're not saying anything bad about the competitors. We're just
yeah,
talking about the way how the sports run. I just want to clarify that out there, so people are like, they're attacking the
oh
competitors. No, we have nothing but the utmost respect for anyone that steps on the bodybuilding stage.
yeah, absolutely. And like I said, I congratulate every single person who's going out there and hitting all of these shows. It's just my personal opinion, and like I care about the health of the industry. I care about the future of the industry. I would like to see certain things shifted in order to see a little bit more health and safety into it, and put more effort into the actual athletes rather than money. So
How much weight do you feel on your shoulders, pun intended, by the way? But you have a very large following, and you're one of the originals where when I first got it started, doing this podcast, and when I was really into fitness, like around the time that you started competing, like, yeah, you were one of the first ones that really took off. But how much pressure do you feel knowing that like you have so many people that follow you to still maintain this image and to still be like a voice of reason for the sport and to be a positive light in it? Because unfortunately, there are some people that also have huge followings that just fall into the following and they just want to be as popular as ever, and that includes maybe not doing the right things.
so my I can't get above 94,000 followers. Just can't. I don't know what it is and what I got to do to just crack that. But I've broken it down to this. My entire following has been organic and original, and they followed me because I am me. I don't like trends, never have. I don't like whenever people use the trending music. Sometimes I don't want to just try to find a song for something. I'll just pick something that sounds good.
Yeah, you don't
But
just want to hear yourself grunting while you're working out. If like you're posting a workout video, you got to add some music to it. Yeah.
sometimes it's fine. Sometimes, like you got like a really intense leg day and you do the slides and you're like,
Yeah, yeah. If you have, first of all, if you have a good grunt, now I know some people, I know even the manliest of men that have the girliest grunt ever. So it's like, if that's the case, then you got to find something.
oh my God, it's like that movie. Oh my God, I can't think of it. But he's like in the gym going, everything you got, everything you got.
Oh yeah, yeah, yep, yep.
Such a great one. But Anyway, God, I forgot what I was
See, we got
saying.
our tangent. We had to get our little tangent segment into here. And that has to happen at least once a podcast.
You did it, and I said we need to have a good like structure, and then here it is.
We started out so good that I was like, okay, you know what? Now it's time that I mess it up for a little bit. But no, we were talking about.
Social media.
Oh, yep, yep.
Yeah, so authenticity. My biggest thing is I am my authentic self. So I love rock music and I love metal, but I was also a cheerleader, dancer. I'm going to give you a roundabout thing about me. Education wise, I'm a goofy person. I'm not going to give you all these technical definition terms. So if there's something I want to give as like an advice, I'll do it in my own fashion, not exactly where every single person is doing the same thing. What I did notice the past like 6 months or so, there was so many new people in the fitness industry, and every single person had like their videos dimmed down, and every single person was like living their darkest life and fighting demons. And I'm like, you're in the fucking gym. You're literally paying for a gym membership. You have a cell phone. You have internet access. Why are you so upset? I get it. I have been through some dark shit, but it was like a phase. Every single person was doing the same thing. And I was like, why is this a trend? It feels so negative. Dude, like, let it go. You're in the gym, making yourself feel better. Have some happiness.
I know they're like playing the depressing music and stuff like that, and it's like, I you're not storming the beaches at Normandy, okay? You're lifting weights in a gym,
No.
basically. So it's like you're not doing something heroic where it's like, no, you're just, and I get that too. And yeah, the trends don't even get me started on that. Where it's once a different every different week. I mean, there's a new goddamn trend out there, and then I tried it once. I tried trends once, and then when it didn't work out, I was like, okay, this is stupid, and I haven't done it since. So I feel like someone needs to try it at least once, and then if it doesn't work out, then you're just like, yeah, okay. It's kind of like with everything. Like if you want to go gamble once and then you lose all your money, then you're like, okay, I learned my lesson there. So
Yeah.
that's kind of like how I really fall into that. But just being that you've done this for as long as you have, and as the sport is changing and evolving, do you see that the people that compete in the sport are changing and evolving as well? Because like I've noticed that it's gotten a heck of a lot younger than it was even 5 years ago.
Well, yeah. And it's literally just like dazed and confused, you know? All these high school girls say the same age. It's
I gotta say that is one of my favorite movies ever. Like I love that movie.
so I'm going to do nothing but quote movies. So we're getting older, but all these new kids are coming into the gym, and it's because of TikTok and social media platforms and everything. And I'm happy about it. That's amazing. That's great. But we need to be the change for that group of people to send them in a right direction. To like, approach them like, hey, let's try this for a workout. Or if I've had guys, 17-year-old guys approach me about SARMs. And I'm like, okay, first of all, why are you approaching a female about anything like that? Second, really? Whatever. The balls on some of these kids, I guess.
Well, they're not going to be as big if they're taking SARMs, wink, wink. But anyway, though. But for me, like I've heard of 14-year-olds and doing much worse than that, which is like it's like, dude, don't you realize that you're not going to have any testosterone at all in your 20s, and you're just going to have to be on, TRT the rest of your life because you're not going to be able to produce any of your. So, like, we talk about stuff like for women, obviously, because you're a woman, but like for the guys, it's like, it's not talked about at all. And they are doing much crazier stuff where you're just like, what are you guys doing? But no, I know. And just like with the younger things too, it's funny though. I have reason to believe like, yeah, if Instagram and all that stuff were shut down, maybe 10% of the people might actually compete like in a show, because most people now, it just seems like they're just doing it for Instagram, and it's like that's fine because you are bettering your health, but it's like if you're not doing it for the love of the sport, it's like you're not going to last. And there's always those people every year that you see and you're like, okay, yeah, they're in it for only about 6 months and then they're going to be done.
Oh, for sure. And that's kind of the sad part is like, you got, like I said, I love the prep. That's what I love because it's a mental thing. You have to tell yourself no, or you have to tell yourself you have to keep going. Like, I absolutely hate cardio. I really do, truly. I will literally break my session of cardio up into multiple sessions throughout the day just to fucking get it done. Now, other people, they have their own thing. They love the show day. They love the hair, the makeup, the this, the that. I feel like I look like a clown when I put on that much makeup. That's just me. I just don't look, I don't care for it. Now, like social media status, a lot of people have, gone through like the OnlyFans stuff, and that's totally great. You do you. And they're finding ways to make money, which is awesome because, again, sponsorships, we're not getting jack. And I think what destroyed that was probably whenever Bang entered the chat and started picking up all these little rave girls and just handing them free cans of Bang. And now all these supplement companies are like, oh, you can be a brand ambassador. We'll give you a couple things here and there a month. And it just went from there. So it's just free advertisement for multiple amounts of people. And it's just, that's it. Now there's nothing for the athlete.
The first month that I started having female athletes on, I got a message from Bang saying, "Do you want to be a Bang girl?" Me. And I was just like, okay, that was quick. And second of all, I said, if you give me free stuff, I'll do whatever you want. But like, no, it was, and I had to tell him, I was like, no, I'm not a girl, so I'm not gonna be one of your Bang girls in those, little, in some of that gym wear that they have you wear, and then go out and sell your stuff. Which believe me, I am thankful that the younger people getting into the sport are going to be too young to really remember that. So I'm glad that they didn't have to go through with that. But yeah, I remember just the whole Bang craze. That was like when I first got started doing this podcast too. So like 6 years ago. But yeah, it's just been crazy how that's. But yeah, that's one thing that I started really seeing myself too, is when it became so much more corporate, where it's like we only do this sport because of what we might get from it. And I always tell people,
Yeah.
if you want to get into bodybuilding to make money, you're better off just putting a 38 in your mouth, because that's really going to be easier for you.
And like, there's so many things that are saturated. Gyms are saturated, clothing lines are saturated, supplement companies are saturated. Like, you have this dream and desire to want to start something because it's the American dream of having your own business. And then, especially with COVID happened, businesses were shut down, everything went online. And so now we're trying to do more virtual stuff, which we're being innovative. That's great. But at the end of the day, are you living up to the standard of what you want? You know, don't sell yourself short.
I've made that mistake plenty of times. And yeah, you have to know your worth, and you also just do something that you love too. Is that really what is the best piece of advice? But when it comes to, some of the things about the sport that I would like change too, we got to talk about coaches real quick, because that is definitely
Yeah.
one of the things that like is so not discussed as much as it should, because for all the good coaches out there, there are vastly more bad coaches, just because I blame it on everyone thinking that they're a coach. And you have those people that they compete in one show and then they consider themselves a bodybuilding expert and they didn't even win their pro card. And then they're like, I'm a coach now, I know all this stuff. But what do you look for in a coach to really consider them to be a good coach for you? Because it does differ from person to person, but just in general, what do you think that people should really look for in their coaches in order to get the best experience out of things?
I think you need to understand yourself first. Are you someone that you can hold your own accountability, or do you need someone to hold your hand? So you need to find that coach that's either going to hold your hand or just be there to guide you. And then also, are you a yes man, yes sir, or are you a okay, can you tell me why we're doing this? If you're a yes man, then go with someone who's going to just tell you what to do. And then if you're okay, can you give me the reasons on why? Like how I am. I'm that type of person that I want to know what we're doing this because I want to learn, because I also want to be a coach. And I've been coaching a couple of people for the past 2, 3 years now. So I have learned a very good amount, not only for myself, but also as a whole for lots of different things, not just nutrition, but also training, also fatigue management, sleep, like stuff.
Oh, no problem.
And I think that's what it comes down to, understanding what you need as a coach or as an athlete, and then trying to find what you need for that coach.
And I will say, even if you are a yes man and your coach starts prescribing you things or telling you to do stuff, still do your research too. Because dear God, the amount of people that like, and I know a lot of, and I will say, I think that a good majority of the bodybuilders are just the yes sir, yes ma'am, like I'll do whatever just because when you're in preps too and your brain's kind of foggy, you just want to get things over with. So you're just like, I'll say yes. But still, so many people I've talked to, especially young, have fallen into that trap where they'll just do whatever the coach wants, and then
Yeah,
they don't look into it for themselves. And I think that's one of the biggest causes of people bad things happening to people, is just not doing your research, and then it's already too late once you found out that, like, hey, maybe I shouldn't have done that.
yeah. Well, even the basic like vitamins, herbal supplements that you can buy on a shelf. There's people out there saying, take this, this, and this, and this for XYZ. And it's like, okay, but why are you actually taking these? Are you taking these and then just pissing it out? Is it doing anything for you at all? Like, I know lots of people take BCAAs. I I was taking EAAs. For the longest time, I didn't realize that some BCAAs didn't even really matter, but the EAAs could be better for you. But some people just thinks that it's just flavored water and you're just pissing your money away. So,
I'm going to give you a real softball question now, because I remember you commented on one of my posts where it was a guy messaging me asking if he should put what type of steroids he should put his daughter on, who was like 12 years old, or I think she was 11 or something like that, and she was just starting working out, and he was asking me what a safe steroid would be. Macy, where do you fall on giving 12 or 11-year-old steroids?
but like,
Especially 12-year-old girls, by the way, prepubescent girls, giving them male hormones.
so I'm going to give you an example. I want to say 22 years old, and I was drinking all the time, eating like trash, and I just wanted to lose a little bit of belly fat. And I take my butt to Walgreens, and I find, I think it's like, I hate that I'm throwing all of these names out here, but it is what it is. Hydroxycut, and it was like the most intense, like fat burner out there on the shelf. I took that thing and I thought I literally was a crackhead. Like, I didn't do anything but sweat, salivate from the mouth. I felt like I had to eat a whole loaf of bread. Like, I was just so jittery and just gross. Now, people out there asking for advice for like young children, I'm like, okay, well, what is their nutrition like? First of all, but I'm one of those kids growing up where I ate, a foot long cheese coney from Sonic and like double cheeseburgers. I ate trash growing up, but I was so active. I was running all over the place. I had gymnastics twice a week, cheerleading practice once a week, and every other weekend. And then I also ran track. So I was moving all over the place. My metabolism was insane. It didn't start to slow down until I was probably 27. That's whenever I was like, hey, we got to look at some.
I'm 29 and it just caught up to me myself, and I'm just like, oh shit.
Yeah, it kicks in. Like, and a lot of people don't realize that I'm going to be 34 this year. So a lot of people, like, I don't know if they still think I'm in my 20s. I've gotten it quite a bit, and it makes me laugh. And I'm like, that's great. But I started young, trying to change my life. I barely drink. I don't smoke. Like, I've changed a lot. And that's the reasons why I changed, because I don't want to be going and getting Botox and all this crazy stuff, because sometimes that actually makes you look older. So,
So, just for the record, because you didn't answer it, are you pro or con giving steroids to children? She avoided the question, everyone, so I just had to make sure.
that sounded like a political answer. No.
Okay, good. I was just gonna say, because there would be one idiot down below was like, interesting that she didn't really answer that question that you said about. I was like, come on, dude. So I had to clear that up just in case everyone's like, next thing you know, there's gonna be like an article on the Instagram star Macey Toney is okay with giving steroids to children or something like that. Then I'll be like, God damn it, guys, because that's just how the internet works these days. But I had to bring that up because I know you commented on that, and I was like, okay, we have to at least talk about that. But just so you said you're going to wait till 2026 to compete. What is going to be your plans up until then when it comes to just your training and just your life in bodybuilding?
So we are actually starting a family. So that's what our plan is right now. Is I am working on getting pregnant.
I just have to interrupt you. That would be the most awkward thing ever if you hadn't answered my previous question. Then you announced that you're working on starting a family right then and there, and everyone's like, "Okay, is she all right with giving steroids to children?" And then you're just announcing that, like, I'm having a baby right now, by the way. And then I'd be like, "Okay, we need to call some health service or something like that." Because so I had to bring that up because in my mind I was thinking that I was like, "Oh dear God, thank God she
No,
answered that question," because everyone would be like, "Geez, that's sketchy right there." But no, that's awesome. That's great. I
gonna have
mean,
jacked kids, I swear.
you do it in the womb. That's right.
Wow, no.
Kid punches his way out instead.
My God.
Yeah. No,
Just
but
come out like,
that is great that you're starting because yeah, and it's great that you're like I said that you did stuff by the book and you had a timetable because that means I mean that's why you're I mean unless you've gotten pregnant right now, but that's why I assume that you're able to have kids too because that's an important thing to have because especially when these women make these decisions in their late teens and men as well, late teens, early 20s, they don't assume that like hey, maybe 10 years down the line with what I do, I might not even be able to have a family if I want one.
yeah. Like I knew that I wanted children, but I knew that I wanted to wait until I had the right person in my life. And then, we got married and we wanted to wait a couple more years, enjoy our marriage by ourselves until we're like fully established. Because, I mean, you buy a house, you get married, and then you go on a honeymoon and you're like, okay, great. Do you immediately start it or do you wait a little bit? So I wanted to get through one more show and then we can start a family. So that gives me enough time to have the baby, get one more year of just regular life back to normal, and then start building and growing some more, and then do a few shows in 2026.
I'm
So,
sorry, but I don't know how you can ever like look at a birthing video and then look at that and say like, I want to do that. That's what I don't understand about you women. How you can watch that and be like, you know what? That doesn't look too bad.
oh, trust me, and I want a more holistic approach with a natural birth. That's what I'm looking at. And yeah, it's definitely a scary thought. And what sounds even worse is being in bodybuilding. I love my stomach. I love my core. Like it sounds super vain,
But like those
but
abs separating too, yeah.
yeah, so you have those fears of what is my body going to look like? But at the end of the day, I'm bringing life into this world. And I know that I'm going to be a beautiful mother and a very heartfelt person to give guidance to my child. My husband's a beautiful person with a heart of gold. So we can, I'm excited because first of all, I have a huge rock history that I'm excited to just pour into that child. Nothing but rock music.
I love rock music. We never really talk music too much on the show, but I did. This podcast was a podcast I started where I interviewed musicians and bands, and it was rock bands that I would talk. None of them famous or anything like that, just like some local bands and some other ones. But yeah, rock and roll music. I was raised on that as well, fortunately, and never got into rap. Never really got anything anywhere. I mean, a country song here and now I might like, but yeah, anything classic rock like 70s, 80s, and 90s, you'll still you'll still hear me blasting that in the radio myself.
And that's my husband. He's got he's got the country music on lock, and I'm like, that's fine, but I'm doing all of the rock. You got to know the name of the song, the band, and then bonus points is the album title.
I'm not gonna lie, just looking at your profile, I could have swore you were a Swiftie. I was like, okay, she looks like a Swiftie. When I saw your Instagram page, I was like, okay, she might be a Swiftie. So I'm glad that you said rock. I was like, okay, we dodged a bullet here, everyone.
When pop goes punk, I'll accept all of those pop songs because they're done by emo bands.
Yeah. Exactly. And it's like, plus, those are the best bands to work out to as well. I mean, they got to get, you're not going to be listening to like a pop song really if you're working out, and it's not really going to do, the same thing here. But I mean, Macy, I cannot thank you enough for coming on and talking to us. I mean, it was an absolute delight to talk to you. And I'm not going to lie, you were a lot more spunky than I thought you would be. So I'm happy about that too, as well. That like you were, because like sometimes you talk to some of these guests and they're a lot more, not conservative, but they're a lot more like guarded, and then when you talk to someone like you, I'm like, God, this is great. She's talking about everything. So I appreciate your openness and your honesty, because honestly I do think that the sport needs more of it.
Yeah, and that's kind of the hard truth is you have a lot of people in the industry that they walk one line and then you have some that go crazy over here, but you don't ever have anyone that's going to shoot you straight and then just be themselves. And that's how I want to be. Is I want to be real, honest, truthful, and just give you everything I've got, like, as a person. Because at the end of the day, I put on my pants the same way the president does. So
Why are you trying to give me an image of Joe Biden putting his pants on now? Good God, Macy. Jesus.
because you never
Now I
know.
have to imagine his bare butt while he's putting his pants. God damn it, Macy. Jesus.
Wait, ice cream.
Okay, we're not going to get into Macy's fetishes now. Well, speaking of, I'm just kidding. No, but I do have to answer. Well, I wasn't going to ask that, but you did kind of bring it up. But like you talked about, like how just you kind of have to not sell your soul, but especially in this industry when it comes to websites and other stuff like that. So, how have you found a way to navigate? Because like everyone has done stuff of either some of the like her biceps and stuff like that, where that's not the bad stuff and everything. But like,
No,
how do you find a balance between that? Because some people, once they do one thing, they just assume that they're going to be judged immediately for that. So then they just like, I'm just going to go all out then and do everything. Then where some people just don't understand, it's like there's a difference between you doing like a few posing things for a website. There's nothing wrong with that, but then some people like automatically assume to do like more risque stuff after that. So like, how did you find a way to draw a line when you were getting introduced into that world?
so I shot with her biceps a couple of times, and then after that, I shot with HD Physiques, and I had a really great experience. I don't think I'll be doing any more shooting like that. I have a photographer here in Houston, Jay Rusevich. I love him to death. We're actually really close, very close friends now. And he's just an amazing artist, just absolutely phenomenal. And he's very particular on who he works with. And I literally thank him so much for working with me. Um, I have had multiple times where I've had lots of people ask me for doing OnlyFans. I choose not to, just because I'm married, and that is a
That
bond.
would be weird for your husband. I mean, like, let's be completely honest. Yeah.
And that's where he's like, if you want to go for it, make some money, by all means, make money. And I'm like, yeah, but I
That's how a horror movie starts, by the husband saying, you know what, just go for it. I'll be fine with it.
don't, right? Like, I swear,
Cut to 6 months later and they find you like in a refrigerator somewhere.
the Jeffrey Dahmer
Yeah,
episode.
exactly.
So he is super supportive in anything I want to do. And I asked him multiple times on like some of the shots that I've done with Jay, and that's been posted online. And in my thoughts, my opinion is that if I share it for free, I'm okay with it. But I have personally seen some people's OnlyFans that has been sent to me through an email. So I don't think that everything that you put behind a paywall is completely secured.
So I don't know if you saw my story a few days ago, but I was just about to regain my faith in humanity. This happens every once in a while where I believe that humans might be good overall, but then I get told by someone that there is actually an OnlyFans page where the woman is naked and she farts on insects. That's the
Okay.
thing. And then I'm just like, we are so screwed as a species. We're done. I went from having a little bit of faith in humanity, and then you hear that, and you're like,
But so the first thing that went in through my mind was, what kind of insects?
that's the
So,
thing. It's a variety of them. Like she'll do different, all types of insects. Apparently, is what I heard.
wow.
They're in a jar, and then apparently she farts in the jar, and then
Oh my God, it's a jar of
I
farts.
don't get how you would spend money for that. Like that just seems something that you would just see, and then it would scar you for life. But you know,
The
again, people
wow.
want what they want, I guess. But it's just, and if you find a way to make money doing that, just never admit to people that you do that, and just say, hey, I have
Yeah.
donations from people. That's how I make my money and stuff.
Yeah. I mean, and that's kind of the hard part, is like, you can be anonymous, but you have to promote it on the rest of your social media sites. So it's never really going to be anonymous. But you don't also have to do crazy things. Like you. So for me, I'm like, okay, well, if I don't have to do crazy things, then why would I pay? Why would I have people pay for it whenever I could just put it online if I'm okay with it?
Or like decided I did an OnlyFans as an experiment, and I went over this too. Like I got permission for all the guests. All I did was I used thumbnails from this podcast that I took. Of like if I
Yeah.
did like a double bicep for a guest to like as a thumbnail, I would just use that, and then I'd use like a tiny video, like a 10-second video that they did. And then even that connotation where everyone's like, you're showing nude people. And I was like, there's no nudity at all. Everything that I posted on my OnlyFans page was stuff that I posted on my YouTube channel, which is what I thought was hilarious that like people still paid for it then. Cause I was like, wait, you're still going to pay for it, even though it's going to be on there at the same time. But like, yeah. And I know it's like, I think there's a study showing that only like, even like a third of all OnlyFans is like not sexual stuff really, where it's just other things, but like it's the connotations. But yeah, I agree with that. And yeah. And I only, like I said, I only did it for like 6 months. And then I was like, okay, I'm scamming people. So I got to stop doing this because I felt bad about it morally, where I was like, okay, this is bad. But like, yeah.
And that's just like, a lot of people tell me, I've had a few people tell me that, oh, why do you keep your wedding ring on in some of these photos? Like you would get more interaction if like you presented yourself a certain way. I was like, I'm sorry, but this ring is more than just a
Here,
ring.
put that close to the camera. I got to see it. That looks like a nice, oh, wow. Ooh, someone was a big spender. Jeez.
So to me, in my eyes, like I'm Catholic
Yep.
and, this is a big deal for me. Um, Everything I do, I share with my husband. And if I want to take these style of photos, I'm either going to show them online and they're available for everyone, and that's fine. It's because I posted it. I'm okay with it. But everything else, I'm like, one, I don't feel comfortable doing it. And I don't think it's appropriate for me to randomly talk to a bunch of other people whenever I am in a marriage. And then two, anything you put online, I feel is easily accessible at some point.
Yeah.
So that's just my
Well,
opinion.
that's why I think if a guest of mine is married, I will only message them to come either like, hey, you want to come back on the podcast? And then I might send them like a funny meme or something like that. Now, obviously, I don't even do that to other regular guests too, but it's like some people got to understand that too. It's like some of these people are married and you can't be, messaging them like like they're like a girlfriend or something like that, which by the way, they don't like you, everyone. If I'm just gonna be completely honest, they don't like you. They're going to pretend like they do, but it's just going to be I just have to point that out to people. So many people just don't understand that, as well. And
Yeah. And and that's the truth behind it. It's like having a successful, healthy relationship is possible. And it's possible to do beautiful photo shoots. It's possible to have bodybuilding. It's possible to have all of these things. And that's why I believe that there is balance in bodybuilding because you have to have a sane mind. You have to have some income coming in. You have to have, all these things in a line. And I don't know if my
oh, no
car.
worries. No, again, that's why this is all edited too. Yeah. Well, we got to end this on the most Jim Broy question of all time. What lift are you most proud of in in your history in the gym? Like, what's one time where you look back down and you're like, I can't believe I did that?
Mm, I There's two. One was recent. I started perfecting my form and stability with Bulgarian split squats with dumbbells, one in each hand. I made it up to 55s with like 10 each leg, which was impressive to me because I tore my left Achilles. So trying to stabilize is very difficult for me on one leg because one of them is weaker than the other one, obviously, my calf. The second one is, which is so dumb, but actually, no, there's two. Sorry, two more.
Keep going. I don't care. Yeah, as many as you want.
I rack pulled 405, which was pretty fucking sweet. But that was right after USA's whenever I won the overall, and I was just eating like a mad cow. So I rack pulled 405 and I benched 205. Yeah. And I don't bench anymore because I have boobs now. Like,
Again,
bought.
I know. Well, yeah, and again, that's like why. Again, when it comes to bodybuilding, I figure that there should be a way to like do it where you still are able to show off the more feminine side too. But again, it is the hard work too when you really get a chest or when you get the pecs too. I mean, again, that just shows the hard work. But yeah, I understand why then some people get enhancements too in order for the femininity. But I mean, Macy, I cannot thank you enough for coming on. I mean, it
Yeah.
was an absolute delight to talk to you, and I really, really appreciate it.
Absolutely. I had a lot of fun, and hopefully we didn't cover too much because I would definitely love to come back on again.
Oh my God, absolutely. Anytime you want, Mace. You're one of those people where, with how open you were and how much of a great conversationalist you are, you could call. Now, again, please don't, but I'm just saying this just to be friendly, but you could call me like at 2 a.m. and say, like, hey, let's talk. Again, please don't, because I'm making that up right now just to be nice, but like, you could call me at any time, maybe not that early. And then, yeah, we could come. Yeah, absolutely. It was a delight to have you on. And everyone, go and follow her Instagram page. And I'll leave her husband's Instagram page as well. I highly recommend going and giving it a follow. And buyer beware, you will get inspired to get off that couch and stop eating all those Twinkies. But again, everyone, this is Ryan Johnson, DD on the spot, signing off. Have a great day, everyone.
Bye. Thank you.